All right, we've got a good little group here. I'm going to get started. If you're just joining, don't worry, we're just getting started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Business Support Series webinar. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm Emma Minchevsky. I'm Communications Manager with the Halifax Chamber, and I'm your host this morning. After the year we've all had, service businesses could really use our support. So we're really excited to talk to our speakers today about how to help their marketing strategies. To help your service business stand out, we brought in the experts to create a unique marketing strategy that is right for your business and to set you up for success. And we were talking to them just before you all hopped on, and it sounds like you might actually walk away with a little bit of a marketing plan. So that's exciting. So get ready to take some notes. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions for our presenters in advance. Feel free to type questions into the chat box as you go, and we'll answer them kind of as we go along. Our presenters today are Joel Kelly and Leah Sanford. Joel focuses on helping business owners make marketing decisions that will get them closer to what they truly want, and Leah helps business owners feel motivated to tackle their marketing and feel fulfilled and happy with their businesses. Welcome, Joel and Leah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us.
So happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I'll pass it over to you two. Have a great webinar.
Thanks so much.
So we'll just do a screen share here. And there we go. So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We are absolutely thrilled to be here, to have the opportunity to chat with you and move forward with some exciting marketing strategy for service businesses. So as Emma mentioned, we will be encouraging conversation within the chat. Pop any questions as they come up, and we will do our very best to answer them during the presentation, but we'll have time at the end as well if we happen to miss anything. But we also encourage you, if you do have kind of a text document open, or if you have a piece of paper handy, there will be opportunities where we will be encouraging, at the very least, you to take some notes and really kind of reflect on some different questions that get posed to you. There's going to be a lot coming at you today. There's an awful lot to talk about, but there's an awful lot that you can take away to do really important, really critical kind of reflection on your marketing strategy as it is today and where you can take that going forward. So we're very excited to be here. And with that, we'll jump in and pass the baton.
Wonderful. So this presentation could easily have just been titled, "You're going to get there." And we should always be worried when a presentation starts a little too inspirational or optimistic, because it suggests that what's to come might be a bit difficult. It might be a bit time consuming, and it might feel a bit constraining. And we'll admit that all of those things are true for this morning's presentation. We're gonna recommend a lot of things that are gonna feel like, ooh, I'm not sure I can do that. I've got too many employees, or my business has been around for too long. How could I possibly do what you're recommending? But what we want to remind you is that it's about growth. It's about progress. Any step you take that gets you closer to kind of some of the things that we're recommending today is going to be a step in the right direction. That's going to give you increased motivation, of course, we hope, increased profit as well, and increased satisfaction in the work you're doing. So it's not about getting all the way to the end. It's about taking slow, steady steps in the right direction versus, as we've all felt, I'm sure before, running around in a circle. So it's about growth and it's about progress, and not trying to do everything at once. And really what it's about today is helping you take your service business, move it up market, gain more profitability, and do that all through marketing strategy. But
before we jump into that, we should probably clarify what we mean when we talk about those specific terms. So this is just kind of our level set for everyone in the room. When we're talking about service businesses, we quite literally mean any organization that is selling something that is not a physical product. That said, I'd like to put a little asterisk on that. This absolutely still applies to product-based organizations as well. You're just living in a slightly different marketing environment than service businesses. So that's really when we talk about service businesses, we mean you. When we're talking about upmarket, it doesn't necessarily mean moving into a luxury structure or kind of market space there. The upmarket idea is moving into giving yourself more breathing room between your costs for running the business and offering your service and where you are in charging in your prices. And that breathing room, we kind of live in a financial profitability space, is how we can move that up market when we're talking about that. And when we talk about profit, we absolutely mean a financial profitability, because that's the oxygen for our businesses, but we also mean an emotional profitability as well. That motivation cup, that how you can kind of keep going forward with it, that emotional profitability is a really important piece of your business and your marketing position. And then finally, the marketing strategy, as we speak about it, is literally the ways in which you are moving your business forward and the plan of action to do that. Core to that marketing strategy is your marketing position. It is the definition of who you are and how your customer sees you. So there's kind of 4 parts that go into building a marketing position. You might want to just do a quick screen grab of this, but we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about marketing positions and the 4 elements of them. And the kind of interesting part about this is when you think about a marketing position, you think, well, that's about me and my organization. But in fact, 3/4 of the elements that go into a marketing position are not about you at all. They're about your customer and how your customer perceives you. So we're talking about the who. That is exactly, who is your customer? Who is your best customer? Who is buying from you? And who are they as a people, as an organization? And who are they kind of within the market? When we're talking about the what, it's not necessarily what you're selling, it's what they're buying, what they perceive as the value that they will get from you and your services. The how is the one part that's all about you. It's how you uniquely deliver this service to your customers. And then ultimately the struggle, my personal favorite part of the marketing position, the struggle is the moment that exists within your customer's life that the demand is created for your service. So what is that moment that they had an aha moment and said, this is what I need someone to help me with that? Because the struggle is where you will find your insights and opportunities to do your best marketing and reach your best customers.
And so the struggle that you may have faced that may have brought you to this presentation today, or just has you thinking more about your marketing strategy, is that as either the owner of a service-based firm or someone working in a service environment, you might have a desire that is currently unfulfilled, and that desire may be kind of on 2 ends of this kind of spectrum, which is on the one side, you want to feel both busy and motivated. And that's kind of in opposition to feeling busy but exhausted, which we certainly felt when we first started our business. We were busy, we had lots of work coming in, and that was partially because we were kind of doing everything. We were taking on a little bit of anything for everybody, and that was keeping us very, very busy. But it was very exhausting because everything was different. There are the costs, as you've probably felt, costs go up as you're taking on more and different types of work. And that can feel quite demotivating because you're busy and you seem like you're making money, but why don't you feel successful? Because you're exhausted versus feeling motivated to keep working. So that's on one side when you've got lots of potential clients, but you're feeling quite exhausted as a result. On the other side, and we certainly have been here too, is you want to feel useful, but also free. And so what we mean by that is maybe you've got an amazing service that when you work with clients, you're delivering incredible value to them. They see what you're doing for them. They see the value and they really, really deeply appreciate it. But you're always on the hunt for that next client. Getting that client maybe takes a long prospecting process, or you need many leads coming in before one of them manifests into a client. So while you feel very useful and valuable to the clients you have, you don't feel free because you may feel like, well, I can't take the weekend off. I don't have work coming up. My pipeline isn't full. So how could I possibly take vacation or slow down or even take some time to think? So you want to feel useful and free and not always on the hunt. So that's often the struggle that we have found as working with the owners of service businesses is they feel kind of stuck and they don't know where they're supposed to go to feel busy and motivated and both useful and free, as in they have that kind of sense of space, that breathing room that Leah talked about earlier, that they probably started the business for in the first place.
So I'd encourage you all, just take a moment and think about how you're feeling today. Think about how you felt perhaps 6 months ago. And what side of that coin do you feel you're on right now? If you're feeling in a particular moment of this, busy and exhausted, or do you happen to feel, are you cresting towards busy and motivated? Or are you kind of feeling in that space of always on the hunt?
Mm-hmm. So take a second. We're gonna pause for 10 seconds for you to take a note and just kind of record for yourself how you're feeling today. Because what we've found is that the owners of service business can often simply feel stuck. And they can feel stuck on again, kind of 2 sides of the coin, in that they can have too many options. So they have all of these potential clients they could work for, or they feel like they've got this amazing service, but they don't know exactly who it's for or how to get those clients kind of in the pipeline. So we're going to break this down and just give you kind of two classic examples. As Leah mentioned, this is broadly applicable to almost, every marketing challenge or business, but we're going to go specific so that hopefully you can kind of see yourself in these examples. So we're going to play with two examples on each side of this coin. So let's say you feel right now that you're busy, but you're exhausted. Let's say you're the busy creative. This might be maybe you have too many projects. You've always got new work coming in, but it's always a little different from the last project. You might be feeling some intense pricing pressure, which is you might have this sense of, I'd love to just raise my prices. That might give me some extra breathing room. But what if my clients never work with me again? If I turn down this job, what if there's not another job after it? And you might be feeling like you're doing a little bit of everything for everybody. You're not sure exactly who your best client is, because right now you can work with everybody. But of course, that has you potentially feeling quite exhausted, kind of on that treadmill. We talk about it a lot. You're still on the treadmill, but you've got this kind of sick feeling that it's speeding up. That's kind of where we can feel in this position. And what that does is we can kind of feel like we're a bit of a commodity, that we are replaceable with someone else who does the exact same thing as we do, which can give us that kind of feeling of, of FOMO, of the fear of missing out, that if I don't take this job, will there be another job after it? And we can get this kind of just overall sense that we're not one in a million, which is what we all want, but we're just one of a million. So take a moment. If any of that resonated with you, just jot down that's maybe where you're feeling, is that you might be on the busy but exhausted side. So we'll set that aside and let's look at the other side of the coin, which we're just going to call, for the sake of it, kind of the hustling advisor. So this is the type of business who has an amazing service and they know it and the clients they work with value it, but they just need the meeting. They just need to sell. They just need that opportunity to get that next job. And that can kind of make them feel like they're always on the hunt. They know what they're doing. They know what they're great at, but convincing clients and persuading them to work with them can take an awful lot of time. And even if their prices seem profitable, they're getting compensated well for the work they're doing. It takes so much time to get that new job. By the time it comes along, it feels like that profit margin has evaporated, and it feels like every sale takes convincing. So they feel like instead of being focused exactly on the work they're doing right now, they're always looking, they're always on the hunt. They're not relaxed and they don't feel free. They always have potentially even a sense of guilt that they need to be working harder than they are now so that they can get that next piece of work. So where might you be feeling? Is it that you might have too many options? Or is it that you might have too few options? And if you're not sure, if you don't know which camp you fall into, that's perfectly okay. What's going to come up is going to give you lots more to think about and ways to kind of see where your options might be either way. So speaking of options, what are your options? So we have to kind of just do a level set here of, where does profit come from? So this is not our learning here. This is what people like Michael E. Porter from the Harvard Business School has developed over the last many decades. Roger Martin, formerly of the Rotman School, and of course he worked very closely with A.G. Lafley of Procter & Gamble. What they've done kind of over their educational careers is figure out that there really are only two paths to profit. There will always be the odd exception, but broadly, there are two ways to create sustainable profit in your business. One way, the way that most of us might think of immediately, is what's called cost leadership plus scale. So that's being the biggest and benefiting from having amazing network effects and scale economies. Because you're the biggest, you can drive your costs down. You can pressure your suppliers to lower their costs so that you're eking out a little bit of profit on each job. It's not huge, but because you have so many clients or customers, you're making enough money and it's sustainable. The challenge with that, of course, is there's usually only room for one cost leader in any market, any industry, or any arena, as Rita McGrath calls it. It's very costly to get into that position. It takes massive investment, often up front. We see that especially in the tech space. It takes hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars for a startup to get into a position where they can become a cost leader.
It's also a space that's a little more complicated for service businesses to play in. Because at that point, we can all think of a few of the big name service lines that are out there, but they are your multinational
Typically, yeah.
typical organizations with thousands of employees. And that might not necessarily be something that you aspire to, or that is quite honestly as achievable in a short-term run for you.
So we know how that works. You're on the product side and retailer, of course, we have our Walmarts and Amazons. But then let's think about the other alternative. The other way we can have sustainable profit is through differentiation and focus. It's by doing something very different from other players in the market. It's almost impossible to do something in the middle, to work and do everything for everybody without being the cost leader or the very biggest. It's very difficult to maintain that position, but it's actually surprisingly easy to differentiate yourself and focus on one core element of your client set, your industry, your arena, and be the very best at that. And that's what we're going to be focused on mostly this morning, is that second part. How can we gain sustainable profit over time through differentiation and focus? And it's really because our typical client that we work with, or the service business owners we talk to, they rarely tell us they want to be the biggest and the cheapest. They usually tell us they want to be the best. And so that's what we're going to talk through this morning, is how do we get to be the best?
And if you find cost leadership and scale is still the thing that your heart is really pulling you towards, that's wonderful. The best next step to take, though, is to start with differentiation and focus, because it is much easier to be a specialist and the best and grow into scale than it is to suddenly command the space and then try to perfect the product and service that you're working on.
So
we've got some bad news to share with you first. You're going to have to say no to almost everything, which is a fundamentally unsettling thing to say to another small business. I know when we started out, we've gone through the evolution of kind of repositioning and refining and really working on that differentiation and focus. And at every step of the way, saying no to things is an uncomfortable feeling. You feel a little ungrateful. You feel a little nervous. You feel like you're hedging against your own success down the road. And the reality is that yes, you will say no to almost everything. And yes, focus is scary. And it's not just us saying this through personal experience. It's not just us saying this as practitioners and consultants who work with all sorts of service businesses and understanding their experiences with focus. Focus is considered scary from the greats.
Yeah. So for instance, Clayton Christensen, who we'll be referencing a few times throughout the presentation, who developed the jobs to be done theory and the innovator's dilemma, he said focus is scary. Blair Enns, who pioneered the win without pitching style of working, which is a way for creative entrepreneurs to be able to win work without going through the typical pitch process, he said finding a focus for your business is the difficult business decision that we have to make. And Jack Trout and Al Rees, who developed kind of the modern concept of market positioning in the 1970s, they said focus and positioning is the ultimate marketing sacrifice. So it is difficult, but it gets easier. And as many of us on this webinar this morning may have experienced, not being focused and not being positioned is harder. This is difficult, but making progress in this direction gets easier over time and gets more motivating and more fun. And we do have to make the decision. We can't be stuck in the middle. We do have to decide whether we're going towards cost leadership and scale, or whether we're going towards differentiation and focus, because being stuck in the middle is an unsustainable position. But there's good news. So if you're with us so far and you haven't given up yet, we have good news. And as we mentioned before, especially on this next slide coming up, you're going to think, well, that's impossible. And we just want you to remember that this is a journey and that this is progress, and getting closer to this aspiration will make things easier on you, will make your marketing easier, your decisions will be made with more confidence, and they will be more effective. Because the good news is, when you focus, this is what you get to focus on: your best clients and your best work. What does that mean? When we talk about your best clients, what we mean by that, these are the clients that truly get you, need you, and value you. What each of those means is, when we say the clients that get you, you already know which of these clients are for you. Those are the ones that you didn't even have to sell. You just told them what you did, how you did that, what you're passionate about, and they already realized you're the perfect business for me. You're either the perfect service, or you're the perfect business, you're the perfect person to help me. So you kind of know who those clients are. And then think about the clients that truly need you. the ones that keep coming back when it seems like they might have perfectly acceptable substitutes or other options, but for whatever reason, they keep coming back to you. And those are the ones that you might think, are they just working with me because they like me? It may be, but those are the ones that for whatever reason, they need you. And then finally, the clients who value you. And again, those are the ones who don't negotiate on price, who aren't always trying to expand the scope of your services, or who do come back for more work in the future, but they want it at a lower rate and they want it faster. Instead, you want those clients who are always happy to pay the prices that you are offering and really appreciate the work you're doing. And what you're going to try to find is, in the middle of those overlapping Venn diagrams, who's the client or the type of client who gets you, needs you, and values you. So write down, maybe take a second, we'll pause for another second here, and just write down any clients that may occur to you who might fit that set.
And as you're going through, if you're not finding too much overlap, that's okay. Look for the ones and just start bundling kind of into each of those three groups. You should know kind of in your gut, you'll have that feeling of who your best and who your favorite and who your most enjoyable clients and the types of work that you were doing with them were for.
So now let's talk about the work you're going to do, because we said it's just your best and favorite work. So what does that mean? This is the work that you're best at, that you love most, which is most valued by your clients, and nothing else. So before we go too far there, you might be thinking, are you telling me that I only have to do in my business the stuff that I'm great at and that I love? Yes and no. Yes, in that should be all you're doing. Ideally, after a long-term process, you'll be in the position where you're only doing work for your clients that you're best at and that you love most. But let's face it, there's always going to be parts of running a business.
You still have to run your business. That's the slight downside. You might not love every part of it, but what we have found through our own experience, what we have found when working with our clients, is that the more you get focused on the client work and find that motivating and enjoyable and it's focused and it's what you love, that motivation trickles over into the operations side as well. So while you might not love popping into your accounting software and you might not love having to work through bills and invoices and your location and mailboxes, those things become less aggravating as the other side of the work that you're selling to people becomes more enjoyable. The whole thing improves as you move forward.
And just remember, when we hire people to work with us, we wouldn't want to feel about them that they're doing work that they're not great at and that they don't like. And in the same way, when we do work for our clients, at best, we're doing the work that we are truly great at and that we love doing. And there's a reason why we're going to focus on this. So we're going to pause for a second here, and there's going to be some questions that you can ask yourself to see how you can find that work that you're best at. And we'll break this again into kind of two sides of the coin. So we'll start by that busy but exhausted service provider who has plenty of clients, but they're doing a little bit of everything.
So really ask yourself, what these are going to seem like questions that aren't necessarily connected to the business, but what do you do in your spare time? What do you find enjoyable? What hobbies and activities and social things do you like to do? What do you most value in the work and your delivery of it? But what is also most valued by your customers and your clients about you? What do your friends and family really truly value about you as an individual? What are some surprising compliments you get? Now, we kind of typically look at this from the workspace, but also look at it in your personal life, because as a business owner, work and life are inextricably linked for you. So what are those surprising compliments? What are things that kind of you thought were table stakes, but people seem to really notice and really appreciate about you? And then kind of look in the final kind of reflection here, what's really easy for you that others actually find quite challenging? Or what do you find really fun that others might find quite boring? So when I look at kind of Joel and I and our structure of things, the books he reads, we both enjoy reading, but the books that Joel reads, I find terribly boring. But you adore them,
Sure.
and it's wonderful. And so it's kind of in those spaces that we're able to find balance between each other of both what we can bring to the table for our clients, and really start relying and focusing on our strengths so we can come to it. So that's kind of the first reflection set for you.
So essentially, if you're feeling like you're on the side of the coin where you have too many options, you're doing a lot for everybody, but you have that pricing pressure, that fear of missing out, or that fear that you're doing too much for too many types of clients, what you might want to focus on then is just one of your many services you're providing, the one you're best at, the one you love the most, or maybe one industry. Do a few of your best clients seem to be in the same industry? Do you have a better understanding of an industry than the other ones you might be servicing? Do you really get their struggle better? And when you speak to those clients, is there a better understanding? Or maybe if you're a creative, for instance, if you're a photographer, you're a graphic designer, or even a web developer, one style, one type of application that you particularly enjoy and that you can become better and better and better at, focusing on these things is going to essentially reduce the number of options you have as far as choosing clients. And that sounds like a terrible idea. But what it does is it also reduces the options your potential clients have to replace you. It makes you unique. No one else can come do what you do in your particular way because you're the best at it, because you love it more than everyone else. So when you find that perfect client, who else are they going to work with? You're the only one who does what you do in your particular way. So yes, it might seem like you're reducing your options, but in doing so, you're reducing the options your potential clients have to simply replace you with another service provider who does the same thing in the same way for the same price. Flipping it around, if you're always on the hunt.
Start looking at, so we know that if you're always on the hunt, you are coming from a place of having ideal clients already. They absolutely adore you. And you're looking to how can we expand this out so more people know about us? Absolutely. What are those unique experiences that you've gained over your career? What nuggets of wisdom do you hold and understand? What patterns of recognition have you been able to pull from your years of experience, from the variety of clients you work with that perhaps are a little more focused already? What process or structure are you bringing to the table? Do you work within that works perfectly for you, but works brilliantly for your clients as well? And also, really importantly, what red flags have you picked up on along the way that either identifies challenges that your clients might overcome or encounter along the way, but also that you know when talking to prospects, these are red flags that this person is not going to fit within your process or structure, or that relationship might not be great. These are incredible insights to have. And if you can take a few moments to really think about them and write them down so that you can start seeing those patterns within your experiences, this is how we can apply this over to your focus and differentiation as well. Because as you start seeing those patterns emerge, one thing that you'll find is that you can start focusing in on perhaps one struggle, that there's continuity and consistency between your existing clients, that there's been a struggle in their experiences that brought them to you. Or perhaps there's one job to be done, that one specific need that the client experiences, and they just might be articulating it or experiencing it in slightly different ways, but you're able to notice the patterns through your experience and the wisdom that you've picked up over the years to be able to identify that and really service it beautifully. Or there's one particular process that you know and have worked and refined and perfected, and it's flawless, and you can go out there and that's how you focus it in on. So perhaps you're on kind of an accounting or bookkeeping or a legal side of things. There's standards of practice that the industry abides by, but you have a particular flair on that that really sets you apart and makes you a joy to work with for others.
So really, this is about if you feel like you have too few client options, that you're always on the hunt or trying to dig up new work, by focusing, you actually increase your options because now you know a defined struggle, a struggling moment in the words of Bob Mesta, or a job to be done in Clayton Christensen's terms, that you really understand better than everyone else, so that you now have more options because you can see where those opportunities are coming from. But it doesn't just increase your options, it increases the options for your customers because they didn't know your service existed. They just knew they had a struggle. They just knew there was some desire that they had in their life or business. But now that you've been marketing effectively based on your core market position, they suddenly have more options. And this is what allows non-customers, people who didn't know there was a service like yours out in the market that they could afford, suddenly they become your best customers because you're focused on their precise struggle, their precise job to be done, and your best process that you love most. Because the fact is, the more options you have, the more replaceable you are. If you can work with everybody, it means everybody can work with anybody who's doing the same thing that you are. However, the more focused you are, the more real opportunities you create, because now you're irreplaceable because nobody does what you do as good as you do it, and no one has the passion that you have because you're only doing the work you love. Because at the end of the day, every decision we make in our business is a marketing decision. Everything we do either reinforces or harms our market position. Where we choose to locate our office, or if we have an office at all, what the words on our website say, the look and feel of our logo, to the conversations we have with prospective clients, to who we hire and how we staff, to the services we choose to do. Each of these things either tells a prospect I'm the right service for you or I'm not. So we want to make sure that everything we do reinforces our market position in the best possible way, because it's the clarity and the strength of that position that determines your profit, because that's what makes you unsubstitutable. And the simple fact is, a business that is easily substitutable by many other businesses will always be competing exclusively on price. But when you're competing on quality, on understanding of your client, of really getting their struggle and their job, then your price has much more flexibility, because nobody does what you do in your way. So it's not about being the biggest and the cheapest. It's about being the best option for someone in particular. That's easy to say. How do we actually do that? Hopefully, if you've taken a few notes based on those questions that we asked you earlier, we're actually going to do a bit of an exercise here, and you might be able to craft a little bit of your market position. Of course, this is normally a process that could take a few weeks, if not months, for our clients to work through. So you might not get all the way there in 40 minutes, but let's go
really
through
good place to start.
a position. So the who here, we got you a little earlier to write down who are your best clients. So take a note, write who, and then write down a little bit about those best clients that you identified earlier, the ones that get you, need you, and really value you.
If a specific name comes to mind for your clients,
Write
jot that down. And if it doesn't, think about the experiences you've had over your career and what ones were most satisfying to work on. What types of clients were those? What industry did they come from? What type of project or challenge were they facing?
The what portion of your market position, this is in the terms of Clayton Christensen, this is the progress they're trying to make in their life. So Ted Levitt had the classic line that people don't buy a 1/4-inch drill, they're buying a 1/4-inch hole. People are buying progress in their lives, not products or services. So what is the progress in their life that they're actually buying from you? So if you're a logo designer, people, of course, aren't buying, a high-res file that they put on their website. What they're buying is confidence in their business. What they're buying is credibility. What they're buying is some extra professionalism or personality. That's the true what for what you're selling.
When it gets into the how, think about what your best work is and the favorite way of going about that is for you. So your how is going to be incredibly unique and specific, and it's how you go about that. So don't think just kind of in the brass tacks terms of, we have the meeting, I do the work, I deliver a final report for them. This is the nuances and relationship building that goes into that how as well. Do you have a specific process that you like to work through? Do you enjoy face-to-face, or is this something that you can uniquely deliver exclusively online? What are those kind of experiences and how you deliver on the what?
And then finally, it's that struggle. What is the moment at which someone realizes they need help? So as Bob Mester says, as businesses, we don't create demand. Demand is created by the struggle our potential client has. We can merely uncover what that struggle is. So think about in your business, what is the moment someone realizes they need help? If you're teaching someone another language, for instance, that struggle usually arises when they have a deadline suddenly that they need to have learned this language by, whether it's a test they need to pass or a vacation they're planning to take. And of course, they're not buying new linguistic knowledge. They're buying confidence in their ability, or they're buying a better vacation, or they're buying the ability to get that job they were looking for. So think about that, and then think about that struggle, because that's where you want to market to them. You want to be in those places where they're looking for support, and that gives you the opportunity to reinforce your market position to them. So again, that gives us, kind of a lot of theory. But we'll put our
what does this actually look like?
Our money where our mouths are here, and just give you, here's our market position. So you can see how this would actually be filled out by a real business. So who do we work with? We work with the owners of service businesses looking to get unstuck and move up market. What we do, notice we are a marketing strategy firm, but what we do has nothing to do with providing marketing strategy. What people are buying from us is the ability to confidently market themselves and charge profitable prices. How we do that, this is the only thing that's about us. How we do that is our one-on-one coaching and counsel, applying those fundamental principles of marketing strategy that we've talked about here today, so that they can set themselves apart and focus on their unique position. And the struggle that we've identified that many service businesses find themselves in is that they're having difficulty making marketing decisions. They don't know how much to spend, or where to play, where to advertise. and they feel just trapped by their limited options. How can I do this when I have these clients I need to support? How can I do this when I have all the staff and all these services I've developed? So that's the struggle that we've identified. The good news is, as our dear friend Christy, Leah's parents' dog, has identified for us many times, it's possible to get yourself unstuck.
And it's possible to have a lot of fun while you're stuck in the mud. It can feel awful being stuck once you've identified that I am in fact stuck where I am. And it can cause a little bit of panic. But if we can all be a little bit more like the golden retrievers in our lives, you can have just as much fun stuck in the mud. And then when we hop out, we dust ourselves off and we just keep running. Now we're on a particularly straight path. So that's kind of the space that we like to leave you with, a little bit of optimism as you work through this.
So we've helped you hopefully get a little more clarity on your market position and why that's important, so that you can focus and increase your opportunities. How would this actually look in your marketing? So what this would look like is your website copy should reinforce your market position. Within the first few sentences on your website, does it communicate who you work with, who your best clients are? Does it communicate what they're actually buying from you, that job to be done in their life, the progress they're trying to make? Does it say how you are best suited to help them accomplish that job? And does it in some way, or does it speak to them at their moment of struggle? Does it reference where they may have found themselves so that they can understand that, oh, right, you're the best service for me? Think about how difficult we all struggle trying to come up with content for our social media posts. But it is so much easier when you know the content of your social media post needs to reinforce your market position. It needs to creatively, and this is where experimentation, trying things out, comes into play, but creatively express that market position, who you work with, what you do, how you do it in that moment of struggle.
And also the question that we get all the time is, what channel should I be on? And the answer is the one that aligns best with the struggling moments in your best customers' lives. Go to the channels where they're experiencing the struggle, and then you're able to communicate your resolution to that in a much more effective way.
So your pitches, your conversations, those referrals and testimonials you get that you put on your website, making sure that they express your market position. When you do advertising or promotions, making sure that every advertisement you do, or at least the campaign as a whole, if it's working together, is reinforcing that market position. Creativity doesn't count on its own. Creativity amplifies a great position. And events, presentations, whatever you're doing, making sure people understand who you work with best, how you can help them, and what they actually need in their lives.
And again, you're making decisions on what events to attend, where you'll do your advertising and promotion, what conversations you want to be part of, based on those struggling moments that you've been able to identify about your best customers. That's how you decide much more effectively about where to even be.
So as David Maister said, when we do things right, selling is just giving people a taste of what it's like to work with you. When you've got a focused market position, all you need to do is find opportunities to express that market position to your potential clients. You don't need to convince anyone, because they convince themselves that you're the best for them, because they recognize the struggle and the job to be done. So selling doesn't look like saying yes to everything, which, if we're busy but exhausted, it may feel that way right now, as we can never say no. And on the other side, it doesn't look like just convincing and persuading, always hustling, looking for the next job. It looks like just giving people a taste of what it might be like to work with you.
So you came to this presentation hoping to get a marketing insight for service businesses. And what we've ultimately told you is that there's an awful lot of homework that you need to do in order to achieve this. And it might feel right now like a very daunting set of stairs that you need to be walking up. And you're wearing so many hats with so many responsibilities and so many pressures upon you, that how could you possibly tackle this now on top of everything else? And the important thing that I want you to take away before we kind of hop into how you can apply this immediately for yourself is that you've already taken the first step. You're about 3 steps up on this graphic actually for where you are, because you committed to this today. You've taken some notes. And if we haven't completely scared you off and you think you want to move forward with this positioning idea and really focusing in, you're already making progress. So it's great for us to say this is how you do a position and this is what you should think about. But I completely appreciate that you probably have the question of like, but no, guys, what do I do now? And the first is to celebrate and give yourself a high five for being here today and for deciding to move forward, because that's an awesome first step. The next thing you're going to do is for next week, and this might seem like an immediately daunting challenge, but we really encourage you to block off 3 times next week, 45-minute windows where you will do nothing but think about this. You'll think about your position. You'll think about who your best clients are. You'll think about your past experiences. You'll find places that you kind of want to focus in on or think that's an experience to kind of hone in on. That's what you're going to do during those 3 times. And then you're going to take out an Excel document or a large piece of paper, because we're going to have a bit of a cathartic exercise. And what you're going to do is start with the worry list. And what this is the first step is to kind of get out all of those sinking feelings you had. As we said, this could take 6 months to complete. This is going to possibly have you saying no to different projects or different clients. This is going to have you reevaluating what is said on your website at any given time, or how you participate in presentations and kind of networking events. I want you to write down every worry that comes to mind. And that should not be a particularly hard exercise for most people, because it's very easy to think about things that cause us a bit of stress. But you're going to write down all those worries. Then you're going to move over to the next column. And that's where you're going to write down what is the actual opposite of this worry. So what we have historically found, and when working with clients, is that worries tend to have two elements. There's a practical thing that you're worried about. I don't know what to write on Facebook, but there's a feeling that goes along with it, a very strong, very negative emotional context that sits with that. So when you're writing about what your ideal future looks like, and this could be 6 months from now is kind of an arbitrary number to choose, I want you to think about what is that practical application that's been resolved, but what's the positive feeling that goes with that? So if I don't know what to write on Facebook now, my ideal future is that I am confident about what I'm putting onto social media, that it's hitting the right targets, and that it's moving my business forward. That's kind of your next one. So for every single worry, you have an ideal future state where you're feeling good about whatever that action is. And then there's the third and final column to this. And this is where we really look at what needs to be true in order to move you from a worry to the positive state. This is usually 2 to 3 things. What would have to be happening? I might need a plan. I might need new tools. I might need more staff. I might need more time. These are the things that we want you to kind of break out in big picture pieces. And then what you do is holistically look at this document and start noticing patterns. This is a really wonderful exercise for pattern recognition, because what we have found going through this exercise ourselves, we do this about twice a year, we go through this ourselves, and we take all of our clients through as well. You'll start noticing patterns, and you can group things together. Several of these worries would be solved if I had a good plan in place. Several of these worries would be solved if I knew with complete confidence what on earth I'm trying to say about my business with my position. And you might find that several of them are kind of an operational thing that might not even be your responsibility, but you're holding on to these worries as well. And in those cases, you can action them with the appropriate people within your team. And so that's how we can start taking an overwhelming idea of repositioning my business, focusing in and suddenly saying no on things, and move it into a very sustainable, measured, pace-driven process that's achievable over time.
So what do we do? What do you actually need to do? Here's what we'd love to leave you with today. If you can just identify your very best clients, your very best work, your favorite way of working, and the struggle you're helping people overcome, even if you do nothing with it, even if you don't, formally craft a market position or develop a new marketing plan or strategy, just knowing these things will help. You will tend to start gravitating more toward finding those best clients. You will find that you're doing more and more of your best work once you've identified what it is. You'll find that you're getting better and better and better at doing your favorite stuff, and that you will do less and less of the stuff that doesn't appeal to you and isn't the most valuable thing you're offering to your clients.
And it will become easier to say no to things.
And it will get easier to find the right client because you understand the struggle that you're helping people overcome.
Then we need to make sure your primary source of truth is on point. And what I mean by that is everyone has a different place that is kind of their canonical sentence about their organization. For us, it's our website. For you, it might be a LinkedIn page, it might be a Shopify site, or you're selling through Instagram, and that's how you communicate. But whatever your primary source of truth is, that one place you send everybody to, make sure that's the first place you go to change any language, to update any visuals, or really to refine who you work with, what you love to do, and what is special about you. And from there, once that canonical source and primary source of truth is on point, that gets amplified across all of your marketing channels. And then it wouldn't be a family knife presentation if we didn't say the next most important thing for you to do is to celebrate this every single step of the way. When you cross a milestone, that's a moment for celebration, because this is hard work. This is work that takes time. This is work that takes thought, and this is work that you will not be paid for. This is work you do to invest in your business. So at every single step, when you identify your best clients, that's a high five celebration moment. When you figure out your favorite work to do, that's a breakthrough and a celebration moment. When you get your website finally updated, that is a celebration moment, because that is one that falls off everybody's plate. But the more you can reward and recognize your own patterns and your own progress, the more motivating and joyful the work will ultimately be.
So thank you so much for joining here today. And if you want support to make progress towards that market position, that marketing strategy, we would love to hear from you. You can email us directly at hello@familyknife.com. But what we would really appreciate is if you got anything out of this morning's presentation, you'd like to hear more, please sign up for our free weekly newsletter, all about marketing strategy, all about the principles we talked about today. You can get that at thestrategyouwant.com. Sign up there, and every week you'll get a new insight about how you can be doing this more and how you can grow forward. And we've left a few minutes here for questions. So if anyone has any thoughts, questions, anything you'd like clarified, please let us know and we'll hit stop share on
Stop
ours.
share.
Hi again. Thank you both so much. That was great. I took furious notes. And we'll be in touch soon for sure. So someone did have a question throughout when you were talking about the struggle and identifying that struggle. Someone asked, what would you say the struggle is for luxury goods? Any examples?
So a lot of this would be different, of course, depending on what that good is, but I'll give you a few examples. So the struggle for a luxury good is often, let's say, status. That person is going to an event. If let's say this is fashion, that person has a struggle in that they're going to something where they want something that's fashionable, that suits them. So that struggle could be something coming up in their lives. That struggle could also be, let's say that this is a luxury electronic good. That struggle, of course, could be the fact that the stuff that is not luxury isn't as good, isn't solving their need in the particular way they want. So you want to think about, it's going to be unique to your product and, often unique to your best customers, but that struggle is the moment at which someone makes not the decision to buy something, but the decision to figure out what they even need. So that's going to be different, but in luxuries, that could be across the gamut, because we know luxury goods, status and social influences are of course very strong there. So that struggle could be, I'm scrolling through Instagram and everybody's life looks cooler than mine. Knowing that, and that might lead us to, well, maybe Instagram ads are a good place to be advertising. So think about that in the terms of, when is it or where is it that someone realizes I need something at all? And that will be the struggle to look for.
Perfect. Thank you. I know Instagram ads work on almost everyone I know. So it seems for a lot of people, it's definitely a good option to take. We have someone with their hand raised here. Kat, would you like to go ahead and ask your question? I can unmute you.
Actually, sorry, I pressed the button by mistake. I don't actually have a question. I'm quite just enjoying taking
now you're
in.
obligated.
No, I'm just, I guess, well, and for me, a question might be, so I work within a nonprofit sector. So our services are support services. So how would you identify kind of the struggle when you're talking about nonprofits and marketing in that area?
Yeah, and that you'll probably have multiple struggles, because of course you have, much of your positioning, much of your marketing may be related to the people or the communities, the organizations that your nonprofit is supporting. So that would be on one side. But then think about, where your funding comes from, what enables you to continue running the organization. Think about, again, the struggles that people might encounter when they realize they want to support you. What is the trigger in their life that makes them think, you know what, I need to help, or this actually appeals to me. So again, it'll be different, but this is where, customer research, including for nonprofits, is never a waste of time. Digging into how your best supporters came to support you, finding out where it was in their life, their situation, their context that made them realize they wanted to help or be a part of the organization. That would be a good place to dig into, because again, it's usually going to come down to, or almost always, it's going to come down to some desire that we were trying to get to, that we encountered a struggle in the middle of. So to give an extremely broad example, if we're speaking, say, of a charity, that struggle might be that I consider myself a good person, but what am I actually doing? And the answer to that is, well, I could be supporting these organizations. So your market position could be then again centered around, this is your way to give back. This is a way for you to, be supportive. This is a way for you to help this community you care about. So again, the struggle will be different there, but you want to dig into where are your best supporters coming from now, and what was it in their hearts or their heads that kind of made them realize they needed to do something.
And the same really applies to when you're talking to your customers and your clients who take use of your services as the charity as well. So in those cases, we love to advocate for kind of a holistic overall position for the organization, charities included, because you do have an ultimate mission that you're moving forward with that everything can kind of align underneath. But there's also opportunities to look for struggles within each of those particular services. So if you are a charity that runs a couple different programs, each of those programs might have those customers have different struggles. Their need might be unified and the job to be done might be unified, and your ultimate approach to how you deliver that service could be unified. But their struggling moment when they realize they're ready for help, or when their community realizes they might make use of your help, those are the places to kind of look, and that can be done often through kind of client surveys, through exit interviews if someone's completed a program, of how did you kind of come across us. And those can be oftentimes in the charitable sector a much more delicate conversation to have, and that therefore can take a lot longer to gather that information. But it is one that if you can find ways to kind of weave those questions in when you're communicating with your clients, can be a really powerful place to discover them, where you will be able to help so many more once you realize where they were.
So hopefully that helps.
That was great. Thank you both so much. Oh, Kat says, best accidental raised hand. Thank you for the response. That's
Thanks,
great.
Kat. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Thanks so much. Thanks
I
for
know.
thanks for being
Kat's a
game.
really good sport, because that's like my number one fear, is accidentally raising my hand and then being asked to talk. I mean, mostly from school, but now I guess Zoom is happening as well. I see that we have a member here from Capture Photography, Jay Fisher. I won't put you on the spot, Jay, but he moved here during the pandemic last year.
Oh, goodness.
So I'm trying to formulate my question here as I go, but how do you establish yourself in a new market? What would you identify as the struggle, and how do you really go from there?
Yeah, I would say that the best way to establish yourself in a new market is to focus on it. I would first dig into your previous, from your previous market, who your best clients were and the work that you love doing most. It may be, for whatever reason, of course, geography is always going to be tricky. It may be that, some of those people are not perfectly translatable to the new market, but that would still be the place to start, because having something that's unique about you is always going to be easier than to grow your market or to grow your audience of prospective clients is going to be so much easier when you're focused versus kind of just, and I know nothing is just being anything, but kind of just being one of a whole set, you will be much more challenging than being, the one person who does this thing the best way, and they clearly love it more than anything else. So again, focusing is going to make it so much easier to grow your presence.
And in that case, I would start, instead of starting with who your best clients had been, I would start with what you love most.
Yeah.
Start looking at what is your favorite type of, I believe it was photography services. Yeah. But what type of photography do you love to do? What is the one that makes you most excited that you will squeeze in another project in an already busy calendar in order to do this? And then kind of go from that. Look at yourself and what brings you joy most, and then start overlapping that with, okay, well, in the past, these have been the best clients for this approach. These were the moments that were a struggle for them that brought them to me. And then you simply building a new, you will have a bit more of an experimental runway to work with, where you might encounter a few more failures in trying to find those markets. But if you go into it with an experimental mindset, knowing what you stand for and what you love most as the root that holds you down, it's much easier to go out and have a few things that don't work out so much. We can cross those off and we know that wasn't right for us. And that's a freeing experience of itself as you go and find those perfect audiences for you.
Perfect. Thank you. He commented here, I forgot that he said this to me before too. His thing that he loves to do is he's a headshot photographer for people who hate having their photo taken. Which is a huge audience. Huge audience.
That's amazing. And that is the perfect identification of both a job to be done, which is I need to have a headshot for whatever reason, because rarely do people just want a headshot. They usually need a headshot. And then identifying that struggle is, I desperately don't want to do this, is wonderful.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a great way to focus. So I would say just, keep focusing there. And then you may find out that you could get vertically focused as well, as maybe there's a particular industry. Is it, creative professionals who need headshots but don't want to be photographed? Is it, people in more bureaucratic organizations who don't want to be photographed? So thinking about that as well, that you may be even able to find a deeper focus, which could be advantageous.
Oh yeah, that's a great opportunity. I'm going to pick on another member I see here, Masters Dental Lab. So they create, I'm just going to read so I don't get it wrong. They specialize in dental implants and complex case support. So it's a pretty niche situation. So do you have any advice for them?
Well, I think they just sent us a question here
Oh,
as
look at that.
well. Is it okay to
Perfect.
post testimonials to demonstrate how we help clients?
If you have approval from the person who gave you the testimonial, 100%. But we do really strongly advocate for getting permission to share those first, because especially in your case, they might be slightly more personal stories that are coming out. And in those cases, you might just want to look at some internal policies of, do you just post the first name? Do you just post the last name? Or do you just kind of say anonymous? Anonymous testimonials carry a little less weight with them. So usually kind of a first name, first letter of the last name is a great way to go about this. But yes, absolutely. I love post initials. Love it. That's great. Yes, use your testimonials. We love them. They've worked wonders for our business and how we go about things. And when you're getting those testimonials, the more that they can be focused in on those unique experiences that people have with you, the feelings they had, the comfort they got when they went in for your lab, the care and consideration that your staff took with them to really make them feel comfortable, and those kinds of things. Those are the beautiful testimonials to be able to share, because those reinforce your position really nicely.
And we can naturally think a testimonial needs to be quite broad, that someone says, some very broad things about, this was a great experience, they treated me well, and I got everything I wanted. We think, perfect, that describes everything. But in fact, with testimonials especially, the more specific into that person's particular struggle that you helped them overcome, that's what makes it more relevant to other people. We can put ourselves into someone else's shoes, but we can't put ourselves into everybody else's kind of perspective. But we can put ourselves in one person's perspective quite easily. So if it's quite focused on, ooh, that person has a challenge, it's nothing to do with my challenge, but if they can help that person, they can surely help me, is kind of the impression you want to give.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's people want to find something to relate to. So that's helpful advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Who else can I pick on here? We've got about 4 minutes left, everybody. So if anyone else has a question, please let me know or type it into the box. I had a question for you two, putting you on the spot. What's at the top of your worry list?
It's honestly, it's what to post on social.
Yeah.
Guys, it never goes away.
I love it.
So mine is what to post on social. I have the moments, I still do. Like, I have my position written, it's taped to the desk. I know what I'm doing, and I am literally the professional who people hire to help them with this. But I am like everybody else. It's still, I stare at LinkedIn and go, okay, no, we got to bring it back to the basics and go back to the position, and I can absolutely do this. And that's been the biggest learning for me in going through this, is one, recognizing that yes, we all struggle with what to post on social or what channel we should be on. It feels like it should be natural. You can pop onto your social channel. Obviously, you love your business.
It's free.
Obviously, you know what to say about it. You could say anything about it. But taking the minute to go back to the fundamentals of it all and say, what is my position and who am I trying to talk to today? What can I help them with? That is a much easier thing to write than thinking about, what do I say about my company to clack out on a keyboard? And then when you end up writing the posts that do the best are the ones that connect with people. When I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, the posts that I engage with are the ones that kind of speak to me on a certain level that I can relate to. The ones that get kind of scrolled past are the ones like, hey, we did good today, thumbs up for our brand. And we can just kind of move past those, and they kind of flow into the sea. And so that's usually at the top of my worry list.
Yeah, and since I have a feeling some other people might relate, I'll share that the top of my worry list is always the same thing, which is, am I doing enough? I am definitely, in my personality and how I work, I'm a sprinter. I am the type of person who does, shorter periods of very punctuated work, but that can leave me feeling like, oh, did I do enough today? There's always another LinkedIn post that I could do. There's always, a little bit more tweaking we could do to something. So, how I've worked on that is making sure that I'm actually making progress. I'm not just doing stuff. Really taking, a careful accounting of what needs to be done and what needs to be true to get me where I want to go. As long as I'm checking those boxes, that I am actually making that incremental progress, then that is always enough. And that's what, if you found yourself in that position, remembering that it's about walking ahead in a straight line, not running around in a circle. And that's the way we're actually going to get to where we're trying to get to.
feel very validated right now. Thank you both very much.
That's what we're
my
here
biggest
for.
my biggest worry is we're not doing enough video. We need more video. And I say that to myself at least twice a day. So hoping I can validate some other people's feelings as well. Well, we're just about at 11 here. That was great timing. Thank you both so much, Joel and Leah. I had a lot of fun today. And I just got to say again, I said to them earlier, love your background. Highly recommend for everyone. It's a great idea. Everyone should have that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both so much. We had a great time. I am going to plug our first in-person event of the summer coming up. We're calling it Wine on the Waves on July 9th. So tickets are on sale now. I think they're $60 plus tax. You can go to halifaxchamber.com/events to check it out. We're going to be touring the Halifax Harbor the way it was meant to be enjoyed with charcuterie and wine. Non-alcoholic options are always available, of course. Check it out, halifaxchamber.com/events. We hope to see you there. We just really want to see you in person. We're desperate for human contact and interaction. So please come join us. This webinar was recorded. It'll be available to all the attendees shortly on YouTube. Have a great day, everybody. It looks like a sunshiny day, so try to get outside, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks again, everyone. Bye.